Hey, welcome to the process. My name is Dr. John Bush. This is for the Science of Fantasy Football.com. That's my website I co-own with D. Mike. Check it out. We got podcasts. We got weekly values. We pretty much full meal deal there. Continuing my video lessons. You should start at the beginning. This is lesson 5B for my tight end positional analysis. We're trying to establish some foundational knowledge that I deem essential for 2023. This is what I do. You don't have to do it. Just showing you the process. The few that are listening, thank you very much. Hopefully this helps you out here. So go back if you're interested in tight ends to lesson 5A. This is 5B. Let's jump right into it. Check out the data here. We're looking at 2017 to 2022. My database goes further, but I'll picking up here last 5 years. And now we're looking at the end of the season, right? The end of the season value here. And I may have cut off the 24th tight end, but that's fine. It shows the rank of the tight end from 1, in this case, to 23, but should have been 24. And if you assume the best tight end was 100%, then I calculated the value of the second, third, fourth, fifth, etc. tight end. So this allows us to see exactly the moving value of the tight ends as you go down. If ADP was perfect, then you could predict exactly what the value of the tight end would be that you picked them, right? So, for instance, in 2017, if you waited and grabbed the 10th best tight end in the season, he was worth 61% of the top value. So you lost 39%. So the fifth one was 74, and you had lost 26. So 26% loss versus 39% loss, and you could kind of get a feel for a decline in value. It's kind of like buying a new car, and as soon as you roll it out the street, you've lost value, right? So that's what's happening every year. And so then we can figure out kind of where we want to be on average. What's the kind of the potential landing? In other words, if you grab the 10th best tight end, you shouldn't expect it to be anywhere close to the value of the first best. So you've got to decide kind of what value is comfortable to you. I understand ADP and actual end of the season value is different. We'll actually cover that data later in other lessons, but this is just kind of getting you a background of what's going on. And we can look at 2022, which was a very, 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 can I say this one more time? Very strange year. Look, Kelce at 100%. Number 2, you'd already lost down to 60, roughly 68%. 32%. So Kelce was so far above the rest. And one of my best balls, he's already like number 3 in a tight end premium situation. So notice the tight end 2 is usually close to 90%, even above 90%. Last year was 67. That is crazy. So was Kelce that good? or everybody else that bad or had injuries. Okay. You can look at that. I colorized the data, and we're looking at the highs and the lows here. And the top rank is overall data. You can see purple versus yellow is the low. And then I took the colorization and went horizontally, in other words, rank to rank down to see what years had the highest in tight ends and what years have been lowest. And 222 last year, if you look at all the yellow all the way down to the 13th tight end, it's some of the worst we've ever seen, no doubt. 2027 was so great compared to 2022. Just 5-year difference, and the complete value structure had changed. That's pretty amazing. And some people are given fits if they don't grab the tight end in their drafts, the early one. So there is this draft elite, or just kind of try to cherry pick late in the draft kind of concept that's come along. There is some merit to that, because value-wise, look at 2022. Let's start at the 6th tight end was 48% of value, and the 12th tight end was 45%. So you'd only lost 3%. So obviously, draft capital wise, you should have waited to the 11th tight end. And even the 13th tight end was at 43. And you were still 8% of the 6th tight end, even by the 16th. So there would have been no hurry to grab. If you'd missed Kelsey and didn't get 2 or 3 of the other top ones, then there was no use in spending draft capital to grab the 6th one, when the 16th one or so would have got you about the same value. That's the whole concept of that draft strategy. And if you have heard things like late quarterback, early quarterback, zero RB, early RB, all these strategies, part of the issue is positional wise. Each position may show metrics that suggest an approach from last year, but you never know what's going to happen. And so these people that make comments, I'm going to draft my quarterback late, how does that then change some of the other positions and what they need? So there's a constant juggling of strategy on each position here. So that adds to the complexity. And I don't think there's a appreciation for a systems approach here, that you just can't focus on one without having to deal with the others, or you'll get surprised here. Okay. So if you plot that, here's in purple is 2022, and you can see it's at the bottom of all the ranks there. And look at 2018. I just randomly pulled that out, and it was so high compared to the 6th tight end, and just shows the different years, but clear that like 2017, which probably I should have, let's see here, if I do that here, line, solid line. Yeah, so I could just kind of mark that. So 2017, just shows you how advanced that, was. 5 years ago, look where we were at. Tight ends were worth much more, even down to the 24th tight end. And this year, last year was so sad. So that would have really changed, some of your outcomes on your leagues because of that amazingly drop in value. And notice the drop goes down to about fifth or sixth and then almost becomes linear. So that kind of two kinetic change here is part of the strategy of how you did with tight ends. Even 2017, you see a drop, kind of a real decline, and then more of a linearization. So again, you grab the early or you wait late, and that the data does suggest that. Okay, so I can't complain about that data at all. So I looked at the median of all the ranks in what was probably the last 22 years. Then I looked at the median the last 7 years in value. I looked at the drop in value from first to second to third. In other words, each one of these metrics is showing the kind of the value after the drop here. And we could look at the 22-year pattern, the 7-year pattern, or the 22nd pattern. And then I calculated the difference in 2022 versus the last 22 years. And we could see 2022, look at the 20% drop in value at tight end 2. And notice the actual drop in value compared to 22 years really wasn't that significant. Probably about 14th down to 24th. 2022 versus 7 years, we still see a massive drop. Second through about 7th, maybe 8th. And then notice at 9th, -4, that's not much different than the 20th tight end. There's that early versus late tight end drafting concept. So if you hear about that, I think people are seeing and looking at the data and crafting a strategy to fit what happened last year. The trick is, it may be different. I just showed you 2017. 5 years ago was so different from last year. So I understand the tendency, and, we have to have a foundation and, reference class forecasting. I got that. But you should always consider when you're looking at past data that there's no guarantee what future results, right? You see that on all the stock market advertisements. If you watch any business channels there, all the companies are saying just because it went up last year doesn't mean it's going to continue to go up. And I think people kind of, okay, I understand how to do it. I'm going to forget about it and move on. In other words, that short thinking, that quick knee-jerk, that system one analysis. Okay, and if you don't know system 1 versus 2, you should go back to my lessons on thinking fast and slow and how we apply those ideas to our decision making under chaotic conditions, because that's part of it as well. You just can't flip-flop through 10 minutes, okay, I'm going to figure this out. If that's how you're approaching fantasy, then you're not even listening to me. You're just, I don't know what you're doing. Getting drunk before the draft or something. You just might as well just start handing your money out to your league mates now. Just say, hey, here's some of my money. Just take it. Just light it up, burn it. So there's always that issue, regardless of whose data analysis. It's all based on past, and the best analyzers will be able to sort that out and try to make a good range of outcomes decisions. They'll kind of plant that, outcome for each of your possibilities, and that's about the best you can do. It's forecasting. It's the best you can do. Is it going to rain tomorrow? Well, yes. D. Mike, the weather guy, right? What's going to happen? When should it happen? How much rain? All that. He's looking at the data, looking at what's done in the past, and trying to make sense of it all. So you're stepping out, right? Anytime you're predicting the future, you're stepping out of the data from the past to the future, and that, there's no guarantee of that. Here is the differences in 2022 is in red versus the blue is 2022 versus the last years. And what we're seeing is early on, we see this dramatic drop from the first tight end to like 6th or 7th. And 22 years of data, you start linearizing by about, what is that, the 10th or 11th, and it pretty much stays close, and you almost get no change deep here. Notice that the dramatic nature has completely changed in 22 years versus the last 7. Tight ends were actually producing a lot more way back in the day, kind of the golden age of tight ends, and so there's been a more dramatic shift over the 20-something years versus even the last 7 is a lot more linear, but you're still seeing a point 10th, 11th tight end where it's almost the same, and in drop value. And so, there's no use in drafting too early if you've missed some of the early tight ends. At least that's what the data tells you that is could work in the past. Okay. So I look at now changing the script a little bit. Experience levels of tight ends over the last 22 years. Here's the median for all tight ends, the fantasy points. And you can see, let's look at median here. And I don't know if I can move that back a little bit. Probably not. No. Okay. My bad. I gotta change that. Okay. So we can see that traditionally over 22 years, the older tight ends are producing more than the first couple years, maybe even 3 years of tight ends. You're almost half the value at a 4th-year tight end at 54 versus 25 rookie. So I think that's been a trend. I don't think that's changed as a group, okay? You're saying not as an individual, but as a group. That means your chances of finding that stellar rookie tight end that's going to break the mold are rare indeed. Doesn't mean it's not out there. It's just going to be very rare. You need to have an understanding of what you're dealing with here. So if you look at 2022 and you look at the change in value, it peaked at year 5. And it also peaked at year 10. And you're saying, well, what's going on? Well, I think you've got 2 cohorts. You've got the 5, 6, and 7 experienced tight ends that are probably coming up the ranks here. And you got folks like Kelsey, some of these old dogs that are just ruling the roost, and they're putting the other tight ends to shame. So you kind of have a bi-peak here that's going on. But clearly, early tight ends need their experience as a group to get close to peak value here. So you need to figure that out, see what's going on. And by the way, if you look at the median data across the years down here at the bottom, and you can see that the golden age of tight end was 2011, 12, 13, 14, right? And we did get a little blip at 17, but look at 40. And you have to go all the way back to 2006 to hit a median of 40. So 2022 was a sad year for tight ends as a group, no doubt about it. In fact, if you had Kelce, your advantage last year was great. And I think, well, I'm just seeing he's already been taken as number 3. I understand if he can deliver what he did last year, you know, I don't know if he's worth the 3rd pick. He may be overvalued, but he's going to win you the tight end once again. And I think everybody's jumping on there, especially in the tight end premium league. So, let's take a look at this same data. But this way, I colored the top 30% over 22 years in green, or the bottom in red. So you can see rookies, for the most part, in 22 years, they've been at the bottom as a group. Year 2, we had, what is this, 6, 7, 8, 9. Almost half the time they're in the bottom. And notice that in the last few years, year 10 has completely flipped the script. Like 2011 back, we had 4 years that were sucky. But 2012 forward, we've been some of the best tight ends. So we're enjoying an old dog tight end revolution, and we see that, and we've kind of come to fruition. And notice the 5th year, the highest it's been was last year. So we're kind of seeing a cohort development, year 5 and 7, and certainly ancient tight ends at year 10. So I think for sure ignoring rookie tight ends as a group is probably a good thing, and looking at those peaking 5th to 7th or dramatic old dogs, Kelce, that kind of thing, are still delivering the goods for us there. So I think that's really, really neat. And just showing year, here's the green, and this is year 10. And again, really in the last few years has really come alive. Okay. Yellow is year 8, started to decline, but again was high. Here's rookie, red, really hasn't changed that much. So there's nothing here to suggest that 2023 rookie tight ends are going to be anything other than what they've always been. I think I'm sure they're as a group. So here's average of fantasy points if you group these years by sectors. And again, looking at the experience levels, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 10th. That's the overall, and we're starting to see, some of that. I mean, if you start putting the years together, you might miss the year-to-year change. But I see 7 is high and 10 here in the last, since 2019. And you're saying, what have rookies done? They have improved somewhat, but it's not anything 2-3 points in the last 22 years. Nothing here. They're still at the bottom. Year 2, still at the bottom. And you really go up year 3, year 4. So I believe that pattern by year 4, I think you hit that safe area year 4 up. So in your drafting this year, look for 4-year experienced tight ends going up there a little bit. Okay, I think I will stop here. I'll probably pick this up coming in the next lesson. We're having lots of fun. Woo woo.